Hello everyone. It's been a while since we visited Curse and Curse Bombing, and with the new gear dropping, I was very disappointed as everyone else imagined that watches my channel for the Darkblight slash Curse Bombing because we didn't get a Curse 3 like Tier 3 set, so I don't know what they're doing. Why would they make like Curse a thing on Tier 2 to then nerf it, then nerf it, then nerf it when you have so many other things in the game? But regardless, this video is gonna be mostly not even a build cover. It's gonna be an explanation for the people that are interested in curse bombing about your curse bomb options nowadays. So I want to talk a little bit about every class. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I think is the best right now to do, and I want to explain like why. So let's start by the classic, the Darkblight, right? What I think is the only way of playing Darkblight right now. You have two ways of going. The first one is going full crit damage, playing with the AoE version. And what you want to do if you do that, you're going to want to stack the most crit that you can possibly and the most crit damage that you can possibly. Because while your curse itself does not crit, or better saying can crit, but will not change your damage because it is an average normalized damage per curse, your crit damage increase actually affects the output and actually changes the number that you're doing on the damage, and it multiplies with heavy. That means if you have 100% crit damage, 100% crit damage, specifically crit damage, and you do a crit on the curse is gonna do double the damage. And if you crit a heavy on that, it's gonna do double of the damage. So the damage, if the damage was 1, it would go to 2 and it would go to 4. If the damage was 1000, it would go to 2000 and it would go to 4000. And the last thing that you're gonna remember is that curse explosions double your total dot damage plus adds a little bit more. So it would go to 8000 damage. So you can see why actually going glass crate has high potential. The only big catch here is you're gonna be very, very squishy. Anything that touches you is gonna explode you. There's a field system in the game, so after you do a few bombs, you're probably going to start struggling way more if you get fielded. On top of that, it's hard to build because you're forced to use Tier 2 gear with the Sacred Repulse set, so that's a pretty big deal. Even if you try to adapt, it's not exactly easy. On top of that, there are more problems that goes into it, and the problems are, since you're going to be having to build crit damage and crit hit, it's going to be very, very hard to get to a relevant crit and have any chance of having a decent hit and weaken chance, because you're definitely going to have to invest chaotics into it and artifacts. So it's a pretty big deal here. The survival is low, the RNG is mega high, and there's an even bigger RNG because you're gonna have to gamble your hit on the target if it's not a glass cannon or has any evasion at all. And the same goes for any tanks and healers. They're gonna have to have big gambling on their weaken chance, weaken resist, and if they have high weaken resist and weaken chance, you're gonna struggle. So this is just a YOLO fun glass bomb, the same ones that we had on Tier 1 and Tier 2. You just go full crit damage. I highly recommend doing the new set of Secret Order, right? Because this way you can run Sacred Repulse 2-piece with 2-piece of Secret Order. I picked those 2 pieces in specific because it gives heavy attack damage on the chest with the Royal that you can adapt. In the Secret Order here, you can try to put more crit, changing the chest or moving the pieces a little bit. The cloak you can change to the Hellfire for crit damage, and everything else, like I said, you're gonna want to pick rings that actually give crit damage, or rings that give heavy attack, but preferably what you are aiming here is crit damage. I'm not gonna cover too much of the skills because it's the generic thing they already know. This is not probably correct, but you're just gonna want to buff with, oh my god, buff with whatever you have. Blast Dagger for damage, inject poison, enchanting time, and then you're gonna just go invisible. If you can use Genestrate as well, which is the big AoE healing that becomes damage, you're gonna go invisible, you're gonna pop your smoke, you're gonna throw your Decaying Touch, then your Touch of Despair. If you have that, can throw your Ray of Disaster, spread with Karmic, and explode. That's basically the old combo This is the version of tier 3, and you actually gonna have success in some aspects of it, but be aware that it's like I said, it's one of the one-time thing. It's a lot of investments just to get fielded and die by anything that it looks in your way, literally. It's the reason why I don't recommend. I think it's way too frustrating to put this much resources into a build that is going to be a one-trick thing, that's going to be hard to pull consistently, and even harder to get accepting a lot of guilds. I'm not even going to bother showing the masteries, but it's the usual thing. Just gonna grab the Eye of Emptiness. This is gonna be mostly for anything else. Vampiric, Warrior's Gambit, Malicious Intent, with like our potential, Falling Flower. You can change this for the PvP duelist if you have, or the shield that you get, or overcoming crisis, which is the defensive one. I like to use Dragon's Scent, but honestly it's a one trick as well. You're gonna go in, use this, probably die, and not gonna take value off this anymore, but you can put something else here. Here it doesn't matter too much. Like I said, you're just going in for a one YOLO tap. The only important mastery here is this Dexterous power. You don't want to be missing this one, because this one's gonna give you more crit damage. The same goes for the artifacts. You're gonna want to use the crit damage here. You're probably gonna want to use 6-piece. I'm using 4-piece here for this example, but you can use 6-piece because you're actually gonna want to have critical hit chance if you're going for the AoE Big Bomba. This is the closest that you will get for the old Darkblight feelings. I'm gonna actually include a clip of me playing with something similar to this. This was a bomb that I got using Sacred and 2-piece Spectral, which is a tier 2 crit, a crit 2-piece set, and I didn't have the accessories that we're going to be getting and things like that. And you can see I managed to get a crit, probably heavy, a target with low debuff duration. In spread, in a single fast combo, I got a big bomba. But be aware that to get this bomba, I probably went down there like 5 to 10 times. And while I got kills almost every single time, I got at least 1 or 2 kills, which is a good result. It's nothing close to what it was before, and it's 1 billion times more squishy than what was before. But if you are looking for anything that was closer to the past, this is probably the closest you will get. Now, let's talk about the other option. With the AoE option, you can use any dagger, any passive you can be using here. Even I would actually recommend using here Birken's passive here if you have. If you don't have Birken's, just use Deluzhnoa if you have it, or just even the new one that we're going to be getting, right? Maybe that one can be useful. For this other three though, this specific build, there's another dagger or Darkblight build that you can do, which is using E.Tevents. So what you're gonna do here, you're gonna use E.Tevents, and instead of doing big AoE bombs, you're gonna be doing single target bombs. And you might ask me, why would you do that? Because if you do that, you can ignore your crit and just focus on crit damage. Because when you stealth, a lot of people don't know that, but when you stealth, you have your first skill crit 100% guaranteed, which means there's always 100% chance that you're gonna crit it, which means you can just make crit damage percent, and you can have like low crit chance, and your first curse is always gonna crit after the invis. And you can always open with the Cane Touch. The Cane Touch is one of your highest curse damage. And if you open with the Cane Touch, with the crit damage, and on top of that add a Pod, Touch of Despair, that might as well crit. And of course, both of those can heavy. And if you, instead of using Karmic Haze to spread the curse, use the Karmic Haze with the time specialization, you're going to be increasing by 5 seconds all your curses, including, of course, your critted curse damage, which means you're gonna be doing an absurd damage single target. The most important thing here is trying to reach a decent amount of hit if you can, at least 2 to 2.2 thousand, because you're gonna be wanting to use this mostly with DPS, as I would say. You're gonna want to hit your Cane Touch, Touch of Despair with E.Tevent, and then you're gonna want to explode. and that's gonna reset your invis because you're gonna kill him with the explosion like most of the times, unless the guy actually dodges, has parry, goes invisible, whatever, you know, the usual counters to curse. And then you're gonna get the invis, and you go invis, wait for your cooldowns to come back because they're pretty short actually. By the time they come back, you just repeat the process. You open with the King Touch from the invis, which is gonna guarantee a crit, and then you keep doing that over and over and over again until someone that knows how to play the game parries your curse and you die. Okay, that's the first way, and the second way of playing bomb, curse bomb nowadays. The third way is the classic SNS. That Templar has always been a very popular pick because with Templar you can actually build a curse bomb and you can have decent defenses because SNS are broken. So the first thing that you can do is simply put on SNS a passive that is going to make you tankier, like as a heal, or just put Bookwork, which will give you a lot of value on chain hooks for your entire team. Depends on what you're doing. You might want to play with a more aggressive build similar to the Darkblight and have more damage, or you might want to balance it out and play with like an endurance setup with like Eric Vanguard and other things that's gonna make your endurance skill much higher, and play a hybrid of tank and DPS. And by focusing other DPSs, even more glass cannons, you're still gonna have decent damage to kill them. So this is definitely a build more focused on like just being a nightmare for DPSs, and I highly recommend if you know, this is the best build. Like, this is definitely one of the best classes to be a terrorist in mid to low tier PvP. If you bring this to high tier PvP, probably won't do as much. You can play it, I'm sure you can, but it probably won't be as effective in coordinated gameplay with proper shields and proper rotations. But if you're playing street fight like PvP, this has always been a menace and is still a menace to this day. Even more if you push towards the tankish aspects of it. The lower tier to mid tier PvP players have no idea how to deal with this. So I still highly recommend. Compared to one Dagger, Darkblight, your only option on Darkblight is to try to Shadow Step and Prone, or just Shadow Step, or to sleep the target. With SNS, you actually have way more options. You have the option to hook the target to guarantee the curse explosion. You have the option to dash and push the enemy to guarantee the curse explosion. So the SNS has not only more survivability, but it has easier to confirm curse explosions as well. So if you're a new player looking to curse explosion, I recommend going to Templar more than Darkblight. The Darkblight benefits on the pass was not only it had more potential damage overall versus tanks and healers, and that's still true because of the crit potential, but it used to use a lot of poison with like Ray of Disaster and other things like Deckman, which would coat the enemy with poison, which not only would increase your damage overall on the curse explosion, but on top of that, every stack of poison would cover a cleanse. But nowadays, cleanses are much less relevant and much less present. Before you used to have to deal with like more bows in the game and way more healers, because every healer was just a seeker. So every 2 party had 2 bows, that means 2 cleanses, that means 2 AoE cleanses, which made everything infinite times harder. And the poison coat covering the cleanse from your normal dot, your important damage, was actually very clutch. But nowadays, with less cleanse, I think poison is less relevant. And with shields being a new thing, you have a bigger problem now. Alright, those are the 2 main standard classes. I want to cover a side class, which is the DPS Curse Bomber with the Greatsword. Personally, I never liked this one much, but during the time the evasion was very prevalent, and everyone was starting to build evasion, the Greatsword was a very nice stat stick because it actually gives you not only max health, skill damage boosts, but on top of that gives you some mobility with some dashes, stuns, so you can guarantee the curse bombs, and a lot of hit. So the Greatsword was like a fantastic stat stick, and some people still play this to this day because the class overall has a lot of utility. It has like buffs that gives attack speed, it has, like I said, dashes, it has stuns, it has CCs that can help guarantee the curse explosion, and the stat stick on the hit, skill damage boost, and things like that. actually are amazing and like a very big deal. So I still can recommend this if you don't care about playing just off meta and probably not getting invited to any guild ever. Uh, Now the last one is the one that I'm most interested, is the Oracle Curse Bomber, which was a thing that I had already tested a little bit and explored, but I didn't send all into the curse like glass cannon bomber on it. And after doing some calculations on top of it, I believe this has the highest potential possible to do damage. Not only because your damage on curse bombing is cut mostly by the buff duration, and you have the potential of using Supernova and the Rasengan Ball that you shoot to proc E.Tevent, which can, when in range, remove upwards to 60% the buff duration, which is a wild amount, let me tell you. That's like increasing your curse damage by like 1.5 times, basically, which is huge. Imagine doing like the crit damage, the heavy extra damage, and on top of that, adding like 1.5, like 50% extra damage on all your curses. That's basically it, with the exception of Touch of Despair that is kept at 15 seconds. However, currently, and that's been in the game for like 1 or 2 months, probably more. Touch of Despair, since it has been capped, the first cast of it, so the first one that gets 1 or 2 stacks, don't have a cap duration. That means if you have like the buff duration from the E.Tevent orb and you cast Touch of Despair, your first of Touch of Despair can reach upwards like 20 to 25 seconds. So you can actually get a huge burst there, and it's kind of crazy. So this is a thing that's probably a bug or a feature. I don't know. It's Darkblight. It's one dagger. It's curse bomb actually. It's curse. You never know what to expect. This game makes no sense. But regardless, use that bit of information for whatever you need. The other thing why I think this has the highest potential, and this one I think is important. We'll go here, is on the skills. We have this skill here called Pulsating Galaxy. And this skill will make you actually do 10% more damage on magic damage, which stacks upwards to 5 times, which is 10% more magic damage overall. And this is a pretty big deal thing because it procs with 1 as well. So you can use your 1 to stack this. You can use your curse to stack this, and stacks really quick. And your E.Tevent proc from not the one from the orb always will max stack this as well. So it's very, very easy to get this extra 10%. On top of that, if you're using the 1 and the orb, you have so many possibilities of buffs. Not only from the 1, you have the classics that we already covered, but from the orb, you actually can get your satellite, which will actually give you, with the masters, 20% extra heavy attack damage, and that's big. That's a lot of extra attack damage. On top of this, you can use on the shield the skill that is going to increase your base damage by 15%. That's insane amount of damage that you're going to be boosting on top of everything else. So what I'm trying to say is, with this, you can reach insane amounts of base damage by buffing yourself. You have passes that benefit you pretty well on your curse damage. And on top of everything, you have an invis for engage. And on top of everything, since you're so focused on heavy attack damage, you can make nowadays your gear entirely focus on that. So you can put your sacred or use 4 falling. And on the 2 sacred, you can use also the 2 piece of secret order for the extra heavy attack damage. You can use the chest. You can use the necklace, you can use double rings. So all of this will add up. You can even use the cloak to have an extra 34.4% heavy attack damage. Plus the 20% from the orb, it goes to 54%. That's a lot of extra damage on your curse. And on top of that, you didn't give up your sacred set. So you're still doing 24% damage on your curses. So if you add everything together, with your buffs and everything, in my opinion, this is the biggest bomba possible class for curse bombing. If you want to like actually do big bombs, if you want to see big results, I highly believe this is the best. But however, you need to take into consideration that the Dagger also has the potential. However, it has way more RNG. This has way less RNG, is way more consistent damage. You should be getting decent bombs way more often. However, this has the biggest drawback that even though it has an invisible, you gotta keep in mind that the invisible is mega short compared to the Dagger. You don't have the smoke to protect yourself like the Dagger, so that means you're even more squishy. And to make things worse, you don't have a parry. So the Dagger parry allows you to actually cast the parry when you get shadow stepped, and on top of that, if you hit the parry on the dashing parry, you get invisible, which allows you not only to get a free crit, but on top of that allows you to reposition and wait for your cooldowns to finish your combo. But with the orb, you're not gonna have that chance. You're gonna have to buff, go invisible, try your best to get close to the enemy, and do your bomb, and that's it. If you get interrupted at any moment, if you get shut up by anyone, it's over. You lost your combo, you lost your chance. So it's basically an even more dangerous version of the Darkblight. So if you're kind of crazy and want to try new things, these are my suggestions for it. I don't suggest copying anything here because, like I said, this was just theorycrafting. I was thinking of curse bombing. I was thinking of options of curse bombing with new gear and like how it fit every different type of weapon. These are the current 5 ways I see of curse bombing. The AoE YOLO Casino, the single target more consistent E.Tevent, but still worse than other classes. The classic SNS Templar bully for lower and mid tiers. The funny extra off meta with a stat stick of the GS that is actually just funny off meta weapon. It's not. This is actually a really funny combination. You're gonna be like terrorizing a lot of people with this. And the most consistent and probably best curse bomber currently, which is the Oracle, which is weird, but I actually want to try this. So once I start building and I have extra Lucent, watch out for this, because I definitely gonna try this one. And I already have the orb. But that's mostly about it. I hope this video was helpful in some way or form. I'm gonna leave this in the quest log in the comments. But like I said, don't take this too serious. I didn't really touch the runes. I didn't touch the skill. I didn't touch the master and artifacts. I really just wanted to check like what gear, what of the new gear I could put, and like what status I would get. And I didn't go over on it like by maximizing the runes, making the correct skill rotation, masters, perfect artifacts. I didn't do any of this. I just wanted to see how high the numbers would reach and if I thought it had potential or not. And honestly, I think it has potential. But of course, it's hard to tell until we actually get to test it. And who is going to spend 1 billion Lucent to test things? Probably me, which is scary. But thank you for watching. See ya.